So you're learning a new language, right? You're feeling pretty good about it. But what if I told you there's a hidden trap waiting for almost every single learner? It's not about tricky grammar or pronunciation. Nope, it's something way more sneaky, and it can lead to some truly unforgettable misunderstandings.
And here's the thing. This trap is so good because it looks friendly. It looks familiar. You see a word you think you know, you say it with total confidence, and then bam, the whole conversation just screeches to a halt.
Let me paint you a picture. You're in Spain. Maybe you just tripped or spilled a drink. You want to say, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed." You scan your brain and a word pops up that looks absolutely perfect. You know this one. Or do you?
And that's where it all goes wrong, because you thought you were saying you felt a little awkward, but what you actually just announced to a room full of strangers is that you are pregnant. A classic, and let's be honest, a pretty memorable mix-up.
Yep, that feeling right there, that mix of confusion and maybe a little bit of panic. Congratulations, you've just stumbled headfirst into one of the most common pitfalls in language learning. You've just met a false friend.
So what are these things officially? Well, they're called false friends. Think of them like linguistic evil twins. They're these words that trick you into a false sense of security because they look or sound so familiar, but then they betray you with a totally different meaning. They are for sure the ultimate trap.
And hey, don't think for a second this is just a Spanish thing. Oh, no. This trap is set in languages all over the world. So, you know what? Let's take a quick tour of some of the most common and frankly hilarious false friends out there. Buckle up.
All right, back to Spanish for a second. If you're looking for the éxito, you're not trying to find the exit door, you're chasing after success. And oh, this is a good one. If you tell someone you're constipado, they're not going to point you to the bathroom. They'll probably offer you a tissue because you just said you have a cold.
Let's hop over to France, where the confusion just keeps on coming. Actuellement doesn't mean actually, it just means currently. You also want to be really careful with the word blessé. It sounds like you're about to give a blessing, but you're actually talking about hurting someone. And you definitely, and I mean definitely, do not want to ask for a préservatif for your jam. It's not a food preservative.
Okay, now we're heading to Germany, and believe me, the stakes get even higher here. For the love of all that is good, never, ever accept a gift from a German speaker. That word, it means poison. Seriously, poison. And if someone asks for their handy, they're not looking for a wrench, they're asking for their cell phone.
And to round out our little tour of confusion, let's go to Italy. If you're having a heated argumento, you're not in a fight. You're just really getting into a discussion about a topic. And when you meet someone's parenti, you're not just meeting mom and dad, you're meeting all of their relatives, the whole gang. So you got to be asking, right? Why? Why do these crazy linguistic traps even exist? It almost feels like a practical joke played on anyone trying to learn a new language. But the real reason? It's all about history. Yeah, it's not some grand conspiracy. It's just linguistics in action. The short answer is that languages are alive. They grow, they change, and over hundreds or thousands of years, they just drift apart, even if they started in the same place. So, how does a word go rogue like this? Well, usually it starts with a common ancestor, maybe a word from Latin or Greek. Then, as languages like French and English go their separate ways, the meaning of that word starts to drift. It takes a left turn in one language, a right turn in another, and 1,000 years later those meanings are miles apart. Now this shared history is what makes them true false friends, and not just a coincidence, which linguists call a false cognate. False friends are like distant cousins who grew up so differently they don't even recognize each other anymore.
Okay, so we've seen the trap, we know why it's there. So the big question is, how do we avoid it? How do we arm ourselves against these tricky words without constantly making a fool of ourselves?
Here it is, the number one rule. Your best defense is just a little bit of healthy suspicion. If a word in a new language looks a little too easy, a little too perfect, just pause. That's your brain telling you to be careful. A quick 2-second check in a dictionary can save you from a whole lot of awkwardness. Or, from accidentally telling a room full of strangers that you're pregnant.
So now you know, these aren't just frustrating mistakes, they're little windows into history. They're proof that language is this incredible, living thing that's always changing. So I'll leave you with this. What false friends have you run into out there on your travels? And what other linguistic traps are just hiding in plain sight, waiting for us?